Hello, hello, hello. Happy Sunday, and thank you for being here. Appreciate all of you that show up in any capacity that you are able to. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hope everybody's having a good weekend, had a good week this past week, and have something good to look forward to this week. I will go ahead and put our intention up here for the week for those of you that have not seen it yet. Remember that the intention is always released ahead of time, always released on Saturday along with our weekly video now. So that way you can sit with the intention a little bit yourself and just see what goodness comes up beforehand and just see where your own reactions, your own thoughts, feelings, and emotions that come from hearing these words and sitting with them and just seeing what comes about before you come to the meditation. So whether or not this is the first time that you have heard these words, we're going to sit with the intention for just a moment here before we get started, just seeing what comes up. So our intention this week is small shifts can bring renewal. Small shifts can bring renewal. I like this word renewal this week. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear these words? What is the first thought? Is there any emotion that is attached? Is there something that it makes you want to do or something it makes you want to avoid? Small shifts can bring renewal. Cool. So we have a few things to talk about this week. So let's see. I'm going to put the chart up while I describe the aspects here to start with. Oops, sorry. No. Okay, wrong buttons. Here we go. All right, here's the chart of right now. So this is the chart that is set to the location where I am at. Do not worry about the house locations within this chart because this is specific to my location. So we are just looking at the placements rather than as far as sign and transits versus like the house locations here. So we have a few things that are going on this week. The first thing comes through on Tuesday where Venus and Mercury are going to come into a conjunction. If you so when I say don't pay attention to the houses, I mean don't pay attention to the houses for as far as like any delineations. So we're not looking to import the themes that go along with these houses typically. However, we're going to use the houses just for locating the transit. So just clarifying that quickly. So if we look for the 7th house within this chart, you will find the sign of Aries. If you're not sure where the 7th house is, follow the numbers in the middle around the circle till you get to the number 7, which is going to be on the right hand side there, and you will see that we have Mercury currently at 7 degrees and we have Venus at 9 degrees. So Mercury is going to come into a conjunction with Venus on Tuesday this week. That's our first aspect that we're going to be looking at. And then if you go to the house right below that, you'll find the sign of Pisces. And you will notice that the sun is at 19 degrees of Pisces currently, moving into a conjunction with Saturn. So that's our second aspect that we have this week, is the sun is conjoining Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Once we get beyond that, Friday is the lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo. Thursday into Friday, it comes through exact middle of the night around 2 a.m. Eastern time. So depending on where you are at, it could be later Thursday or early Friday. I'm going to take this chart forward to Thursday here to show you the full moon coming into play. Adjusting the time here, a few hours. Yep, pretty close here to exact. You will see the full moon with the sun in the sign of Pisces. This is down in the 4th house here on this chart. And then if you look directly across, you will find the 10th house and you will find the moon in opposition. So at 23 degrees of Virgo, we have our lunar eclipse coming through this week. And then by the end of the week, Mercury is going to be stationing for retrograde. So I'm going to move forward here to Saturday. If you find the 5th house, we will circle back around to Mercury at 9 degrees. This is just after the conjunction with Venus. Mercury is going to be stationing to go retrograde. So if you notice the little S that is next to Mercury there on the inside, it's right next to the number 5 for the 5th house in this chart. That S there means that Mercury is stationing to change direction. So Mercury has been in direct motion, is going to be stationing to go retrograde. So we have a few aspects that we are looking at this week. We have Venus and Mercury come into a conjunction. Venus is retrograde. We have the Sun and Saturn coming into a conjunction. We have a lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo. And we have Mercury turning retrograde. So all of those things are playing into our intention for... Wrong one. I'm adding more things and now I have more buttons to pay attention to here on my little, I have a little thing that changes like what's on the screen here, a little box. Okay, anyways, so those are the aspects that we have going on this week. I see big themes of renewal coming through with these aspects that we have coming through this week. The first one, Mercury and Venus coming into a conjunction. So Venus is in the middle of a process right now. She's in the process of going through a transformation through her retrograde. So she was moving direct. Now in the sign of Aries, she is retracing her steps, and eventually she's going to come back into conjunction with the Sun. She's going to have her moment of cazimi, and she's going to move from the evening star phase into the morning star phase. So she's going to have this phasal change. Through this whole entire process that Venus goes through the retrograde and the transition from one phase into the other, from evening star phase into morning star phase, she goes through this renewal process, through a death and rebirth process. Venus is going through the process now of starting to change and relook at things and reorientate herself and reconsider her desires, what she wants, the way we play within relationships and all of these Venusian things. She's in the process of looking at all these things. She's going to go into the conjunction with the Sun, and she's going to go through this process of renewal where she is going to go through a process of death and rebirth. Anytime you have a planet that goes into a conjunction with the Sun, we're going to revisit this with Saturn, there is a rebirth that has happened. There is a burning up and there is a renewal after that shows up. So it's this rebirth and this reorientation for any planet, reconfiguration. So you have Venus that is going through this process, and then she comes into contact with Mercury, or rather Mercury comes into contact with her. It's the first conjunction that Venus makes through this process. I mentioned this in the weekly video along with lots of other details. So I feel like this conjunction is important as far as initiating the process. You know, Venus has been retrograde for about a week now, and this is the first conjunction she's making, so it feels like this is where she really starts to formulate a plan. She's coming into conjunction with Mercury, the planet of our mind, thoughts, perceptions, the way we communicate, the tools and resources that come to us, the way that we solve problems, the way we get through things, and the way that we motivate ourselves mentally. Translates into physically in the sign of Aries. So this feels like this is where the process really starts to get going of shifting for Venus and the retrograde process. Maybe this is where we start to see where things are starting to play out as far as Venus retrograde is going on within our lives. Maybe this is where we start to reformulate a plan as far as what we have noticed that isn't quite fitting or isn't working. Maybe we're now going to start to go about things a little bit differently. But this feels like a moment where there is the mental reflection there's a moment of being able to be within that mental reflection as far as what Venus wants to rework, to be able to start the process to make the improvements or the changes or the reconsiderations that are at hand here. So that starts us off this week with this shifting or this reconfiguration between Venus and Mercury. The eclipse being in the sign of Virgo is ruled by Mercury, so Mercury is a little extra important this week, just throwing that out there as well. So that brings us through Tuesday. And then we come into Wednesday and we have a solar conjunction. So I was just talking about the process of any planet coming into conjunction with the Sun. That happens that's the case for all of the planets. The phasal change is for the inner planets, so Mercury and Venus. the other planets, it's still this resetting moment. It's still this death and rebirth. So you have the sun coming into a conjunction with Saturn, and you have Saturn coming into a conjunction with Sun. We say Sun to Saturn because the Sun is applying to Saturn because of its speed. It moves faster than Saturn does, so it's kind of like catching up with Saturn. And you have this big renewal coming through here through both of the planets. Anytime a planet comes into conjunction with the sun, it's a death and rebirth and a renewal for that planet. Saturn is a planet that represents death within its own self. So there is this way when we have any Saturnian interactions, there is a possibility of having this own renewal and shifting rebirth of something starting anew, something fresh. In order to have a rebirth, you need to die off and let things go. To shift forward, right? So Venus, or sorry, not Venus. So anytime you have a planet come into conjunction with Saturn, there's a possibility of things dying off in order to create something new. And that's just kind of the natural pattern. I don't necessarily see Saturn as a planet that initiates that new birth, but it ushers in the shifting of the old and the letting go and the dying and the honoring of what has been. So there's this way that there is this renewal coming through with Venus or with the Sun and Saturn coming into a conjunction, but it's coming through both ways. It's coming through from the Sun bringing a renewal to Saturn, and Saturn bringing a renewal to the Sun. Excuse me. If we say Saturn coming into a renewal of the sun and like renewing the solar energy, that's our purpose, that's our power, that's our drive. That is that part within us, that eternal part that never changes, their soul, that undying part of us. It is our purpose and our path, and that which lights us up inside, that which makes us feel warm and fulfilled. That is the sun, that is the solar power within us. So it could be a renewal of that. It could be that there has to be the dying off first. So maybe there's that hard process of letting go or feeling constrained or feeling that there's something that will no longer be. But it's a moment of renewal. And this renewal is what I am focusing on here this week. And then we have the shifting within the eclipse coming as well, coming through Friday. So we have first Mercury and Venus coming together, we have Sun and Saturn coming together, and then we get our total lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo. This is the first one within the series that we are having, so it's stepping into this new energy and shifting. It's a renewal of the eclipse energy, shifting from one axis into the other, into a new axis. So we were across the Aries Libra axis. We still have this, we have one more eclipse in Aries before we're fully done with that. And now we're shifting into a new axis within the sign energy, within the way it's playing out within the universe, as well as that axis of where that falls within your own chart. So there's this shift from one axis of focus into another axis of focus for all of us. And no matter where it falls within your chart, there is still that shifting and that focus. So there's this renewal of the eclipse focus. And the eclipses give us areas where there's going to be big thematic things that we can look at. Like we are going to be able to see that there are shifts and that there are things shifting and changing within those accesses within our lives and the themes that come across those houses. So it's a renewal of focus as well as how this eclipse is playing out within the energy. And you know, eclipse across the Virgo Pisces axis, it feels like when I say small shifts can bring renewal, it feels like the small shifts applies to this axis very well. Mercury ruling Virgo being very much about organization and bringing things together in a cohesive way, in an organized way for a reason, for a purpose. Virgo is very purpose driven, and there's There's logic and reasoning behind things, whether it feels that way at the time or not. So there's this way in which Virgo energy looks at the different compartments and the boxes that we are in, and maybe within this eclipse energy being able to shift that energy and shift the way that we focus on small little details as well as big pictures. Pisces energy is much more broad, and is kind of the areas where we let ourselves be a little bit more limitless and allow ourselves to not feel so constrained and so limited within boundaries. So when we have eclipses across this axis, I'm wondering about the balance of focusing on the small little details, and that against where we need to let ourselves go and where we need to let ourselves just fully explore and just experience things. So Virgo is ruled by Mercury and Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. You have the small, you have the questioning, you have the wanting to understand the small pieces and little bits of information, and then you have the big cohesive that brings all things together. You have the abundance and the expansive energy that just expands things. So that's the opposition between, the natural opposition between Mercury and Jupiter coming through here with the eclipse. There is a renewal within the Virgo Pisces eclipse as well, as far as the quality of light that they represent. So both Virgo and Pisces are mutable signs. So they are signs that come between seasonal changes and between the areas within the zodiacal wheel, which really is a story of the solar life, the story of the sun's birth, life through death. There's this process that both Pisces and Virgo participate in of transferring from the light half of the year into the dark half of the year, or vice versa, depending on which one you're looking at. So within the solar story, whether this is where you live, whether this applies seasonally where you live within Virgo season or not, there is a symbolic story of the sun moving through the zodiac, and at the sign of, excuse me, a little scratchy throat this evening, so excuse me there for a minute. In the sign of Virgo, we find within the solar story and this analogy of the sun, we find ourselves in a place where Virgo is getting ready to hand over the light into the dark half of the year. The dark half of the year starts with the sign of Libra, and then takes us all the way through the sign of Pisces, where Pisces is a sign that is in between seasons that hands over from the dark into the light. So we go from the dark half of the year into the light half of the year, where the light is reborn at 0 degrees of Aries, also known as the spring equinox. So this is 0 Aries, this is where the zodiac starts, this is where the sun is reborn into its full glory, where it starts to come back into full strength and dominating rather than the dark half of the year dominating. So if you are in the northern hemisphere around Virgo season, that is where we start to notice that we are having significantly more time of the day where it's dark. And then in Pisces season, we start to notice that it's starting to, we're starting to have more daylight, and you're starting to really be able to notice that because that daylight is increasing quickly. So there's this renewal process between Virgo and Pisces axis, which is interesting too, of moving from the light into the dark. And it's kind of similar to that process that I was talking about the retrograde with Venus, where you move through this period of darkness and then you move back into the light, and there's this process of death and rebirth that comes through that, and a renewal that comes from that process as well. So anytime that something kind of needs to fade off or die off, you know, we're going into some sort of darkness, we're going into some sort of unknown, but then we come out onto the other side where we can see how it's going to play out, or what the reasoning is, or, you know, what's behind it, whatever fits here for you. and then we come out on the other side and we come out into the light. So there's this way in which Pisces and Virgo have a play within that, within the zodiacal story of the sun moving through the zodiac in the story of the quality of light. So there's lots of different ways this week where I see this renewal process of coming from one side of something, going through a process of darkness, death, letting go, whatever the word is that fits for you in your situation, coming into a moment of renewal or of rebirthing and coming into a new process, and then the light starts to come back where we start to see something new. We can see this with Mercury and Venus coming together and really just amping up the process of Venus's retrograde. You can see this with Sun Saturn coming together in the renewal process that the two of them are inflicting on each other. And then we have the lunar eclipse where we have it across that axis that has something to do with the dark and the light coming into dominance. So Virgo is handing over the seasonal change into the dark half of the year, and Pisces is the mutable sign that is handing over from darkness into the light half of the year, moving into the sign of Aries. So there's this renewal, and there's this like metaphorical and symbolic going into the underworld and re-emerging theme that I'm feeling coming through here this week. So this is interesting, and it feels very individual, and it feels very unique, and it feels very personal, and maybe even somewhat intimate for some people. So it feels like there's some really, really good things that could be coming through here this week, but it also feels like it could be a little bit of like a little trepidation, almost like, you know, where am I going at the moment? And some of these processes that we're talking about are a little bit more long-term than just the aspects coming through. You know, we're talking about phases, we're talking about cycles, we're talking about shifts and seasonal changes here. So we're talking about bigger cycles. We're talking about eclipse cycles. We're talking about Venus's entire retrograde cycle. We're talking about Sun and Saturn coming together, starting a new synodic cycle for those two planets coming together. And then at the end of the week, Mercury is going to be retrograde. So that is another shift and phasal change, looking at the entire Mercury cycle as well. And all of these different paths and all of these different cycles are converging here and all kind of shifting around the same time. These themes that I'm talking about, we could really put them through the month of March, because there are so many different cycles and timelines that are converging here together throughout March, where there's going to be lots of shifting and lots of changing for many people. And it could just be something small, as you know, or something big. If I put our intention back up here, it says small shifts can bring renewal. Small shifts, Virgo eclipse coming through here. So looking at the small little details and dialing in and focusing in while still seeing the big picture and allowing ourselves to expand and have that eagle eye view at the same time. So I think this is some cool energy that we have coming through here. It's interesting that the cards that I pulled are both cards that came through in the reverse position. I have a tarot and an oracle card. So the first one was the Page of Wands, but like I said, it came in the reverse position. So we have the Page of Wands here in reverse. So when I see the Page of Wands, I think of a new ambition. I think of wanting to start anew, blazing new trails, wanting to go forward with something new, with a youthful, energetic energy of stepping into something fresh and a breath of fresh air and just feeling very, very motivated. However, it's reversed. So that's telling me that there is some sort of hesitation, trepidation, or being in some sort of in-between space. So maybe like in-between space as in like a transitional space of some kind, and just kind of feeling like, it feels like there's probably quite a few people that feel like they're in between things. Like there's the way however this applies to you, wherever the situation is, there's this way that we're like how things have been and the way things are going to be. And we can clearly see between those two things, but however, we're still on that in-between spot. So if that's the case, then we're kind of in a little bit of an idleness, and maybe not moving forward quite as quickly as we would otherwise. So what is holding you back? What is limiting you? Is it confidence? Is it that it's wands reverse, so it's fire. So it's making me think that there is like some sort of confidence, or there is some sort of blockage of passion, or like something that needs to be reignited in order for us to move forward with the thing. The other one I got was the Shaman Oracle card. So the Shaman, trust in higher forces. Again, it's reversed. So I'm wondering who, and we all do this, at some point, like I definitely do it too, but like who needs to be reminded that trusting within the greater forces of the universe, the greater forces of yourself, the greater forces of your community, who needs to be reminded of that? Because who is not trusting that higher guiding energy that is around us? And it's not saying that as far as like who's not trusting the energy like in a I'm not saying that in like a condemning or like a judging type way, but like who needs that reminder that we can go through shifts and we can go through change and we can go through the path and the doorway of renewal. It may be a little difficult to get through there because, again, like I said, you have to go through that letting go. There has to be that death in order to have a rebirth. So we have to let go of something. There has to be something we acknowledge, like, has already served its purpose, or we've gotten what we're going to get from it, or, like it's not serving our purpose well, kind of like that. And it only takes the small little shifts in order to bring that renewal and to bring new things. So, Sun, Saturn coming together could be a huge paradigm shift of noticing something big within your life that is or isn't working well, and then you may make big changes in order to obtain the ideal thing that you want. Or it could be something as small as like you start making lists during the week of like things you need to get done around your house. So like every week you write down one thing you need to get done within your house. That's kind of Sun Saturn. It's very structural, it's formulative, it's foundational, and it's something that you are doing repetitively. And it's something that's going to illuminate throughout your life, because those small little changes can add to big changes. So like if you write a list of like one thing you're going to do that week, if you keep that thing on your list, then eventually you're just going to start doing that thing all the time. You're not going to need it on a list, and then you can add another thing to the list. So then that thing becomes like just regular. So now both of these things are just regular, and you can bring another thing in. So it kind of snowballs like that, where small shifts can lead into big shifts, and those big shifts can lead into renewals. So yeah, I think it's interesting energy that we have coming through this week. I feel like it's probably energy that could feel different to everybody, and it's kind of always like that, but it really feels like energy that like I said, very personal, somewhat intimate, and very, very individual to each person, because there's so many different paths here that are converging, and we have different houses, we have different axes that are being activated, and that's different for everybody. So that's what I'm looking at for this week. I feel like these energies of renewal sound very intriguing. I'll go with that. I'll go with intriguing. I'm going to take just a moment to catch up on the comments, because I see that there's a few of them here. Hi, everybody stopping in. Okay, Tom, yeah, you said transitional period. So yeah, that is exactly where it feels like we are. By the end of the week, feels like it'd be a bright new reality. That is very possible. So Tom said that has been the vibe in this transitional period. By the end of the week, it feels like it'll be a bright new reality. Yeah, it could be that way for lots of people. Fun and happy and feeling both ways for sure. And it can often be that way, especially when there's multiple there's multiple different accesses and houses, and there's different things that are at play, and they're converging together. It can be mixed feelings for sure. Waiting, but not due to us, but we are in situations beyond our control, waiting for it for them or whatever. We're in the loop, but not us doing the change, if that makes sense. Yeah, so sometimes, sometimes the waiting is not that we're waiting for ourselves. It's sometimes that we're waiting for somebody else, or we're waiting for a situational thing to show up too. Waiting for those mercurial things, the tools and the resources and the helpful hands and the thoughts coming within. So maybe coming through Tuesday, some of that starts to play. Yeah, so it sounds like we have some aligned feelings here going on this week, of being kind of mixed feelings. And Melissa, you say being patient, waiting and being patient. And I feel like that is always good knowledge, information, and good, yeah, it's just good advice. And especially when we have these reverse cards too, it's something that is not moving right at that very moment. We are waiting for it. It can be hard to be patient sometimes, and especially when we're talking about things that are like desires. We're talking about things that motivate us, drives. We're talking about fiery things with the Page of Wands here. So we're talking about those things that make us want to move, that make us drive, make us want to drive forward. Hi, Susan. Thank you for being here. Bizarre things happening with alignment. It's all these different things coming together at one time. But it does make it interesting, doesn't it? So, yeah, it's like seeing different events each day, making it different. Yeah, there's lots of different things that are coming together here that are shifting all at the same time. And when you have all these different aspects of our lives that could be shifting, it can just bring in a multitude of things. So, yep, gonna bring our intention up here, okay, once more, and we're gonna take a look at that before we head into our meditation this week. So small shifts bringing renewal. Small shifts can bring renewal. Renewal. Oh, we're going a little bit over 9 o'clock here, but I had a couple different, I had a few definitions that I just pulled off of Google for renewal. And once I had the Page of Wands come in a reverse position, and it was kind of like, okay, what is the holdup for us? I'm thinking that there's some people that probably just know right where that holdup is, but there's other people that are still trying to kind of like figure out where the transition is and like why we're in this transitional space. So, these are just some different things to prompt you just to kind of think, and hopefully they resonate with somebody. But these are just different definitions of renewal that I pulled off of Google, so anybody can search these up. So renewal. First one is an instance of resuming an activity or state after an interruption. So maybe resuming an activity or state after an interruption. So maybe it's that we need to get back to something. Maybe there's something that was not there, Page of Wands reversed. Maybe it's a little bit of confidence. Maybe it's something that we had, there was a little motivation. Maybe there's something that we need to get back to that was interrupted on some level. The second definition, the action of extending the period of validity. The action of extending the period of validity. And it continues on validity of a license, subscription, or contract. But just looking at that first part there, the action of extending the period of validity. So sometimes after we've been in a process of something for a while, we start to feel like we should be a little further along than what we are. We start to feel like maybe like, why am I coming back to square one? Why, why is this coming back up again? Or why is it taking this long? Things like that. So we have to like keep the motivation. We have to keep validating things within our heads as far as either having some sort of progress that is coming from it. We have to start to see from the efforts of whatever the thing is. Sometimes it feels like things are taking more energy than what we expected them to. So we have to validate the energy that is being taken out of it. So this renewal could be extending the validity. So it could be like, yes, I need to continue doing this because it's getting me into the process. It's taking me through this process of going into the darkness, into the renewal, and coming out on the other side. I know if I will stick with this thing, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And then the third definition was the replacing or repair of something that is worn out, run down, or broken. The replacing or repair of something that is worn down, run down, or broken. So replacing or repairing something that doesn't work. Coming to a blockage that we know we are at a crossroads of things will not be the way, things cannot, should not, will not, whatever the case is, be the way that they are now on the other side. So these are just a few, like I said, these are just 3 different definitions that I found on Google for the word renewal. And it just kind of prompted me to think about the ways, like why there is a need for renewal and just kind of these general ways, and then applying it to my own life. So hopefully that kind of helps all of you a little bit too as we come into this meditation of renewing our energy and stepping into this power of, I need to take a deep breath and I need to feel that invigorating energy coming through me, and then I can move forward with whatever the thing is. So moving into our meditation portion here, go ahead and take one last look at the intention if you need to. Small shifts can bring renewal. Small shifts can bring renewal. Okay, I'm going to take the intention down. And then we have our intentional candle. I still have this beautiful piece of jasper here behind my candle. It just still feels right to be grounded, to be holding the space of solidness within the change. So like when you're shifting and you're changing, you have to allow yourself to be open and like new energy coming in here, right? But you also have to stay very grounded and very focused. And then I brought some amethyst because I don't know, a little it felt right, and a little intuitive guidance and clarity is just never a bad thing. So I just felt like these 2 big foundational pieces on the table today just were like statement makers, and I feel like there's a lot of statement makers that are going on within people's lives right now. That's a symptom of eclipse season on its own. So gonna move into the meditation portion here, and I'm going to light our intentional candle. As I light the intentional candle, I'm going to recite the intentional phrase, and I encourage you to go ahead and do so with me in whatever capacity that you are able to. So, small shifts can bring renewal. Okay, I'm going to light the candle. Flame ignites. As the flame ignites, it begins to grow. As the flame begins to grow, so does our intention. Small shifts can bring renewal. Small shifts can bring renewal. Small shifts can bring renewal. Many of us are stepping into new energies. Many of us are tying up loose ends of old energies. This is a symptom of the shifting of the eclipse axis. This is something that happens about every 1.5 to 2 years, so it is something that we get somewhat semi-regularly. We get eclipses about every 6 months, so they happen twice a year. They come in pairs, so it is something that happens a little bit more regularly even. But there is shifting that is coming through for many, many people. So, as we come into our meditation, I encourage you to find a nice, comfortable seated position if you haven't already. If you're ready to go ahead and close your eyes, you may go ahead and do so now. If you're not quite ready to close your eyes, then I encourage you to just soften your gaze, maybe find something to gaze towards without staring so intently at it, and just relax and rest your eyes. You will find that eventually your eyes will slowly become heavy, and eventually your eyes will close naturally all on their own. as we come into the space of meditation, let's start by taking a moment to check in with our breath. When I say check in with our breath, I encourage you to just pay attention to the way that the breath naturally at this moment moves in and out of your body. Noticing, recognizing, without passing any judgment or modifying or changing anything within your breath. Here, we are noticing and recognizing and honoring. When we can stay in a space of noticing and recognizing, maybe we see things that we appreciate and like. Maybe we notice things that we would like to shift and change about our breath. But when we honor where we are at this moment, by just acknowledging, you are honoring the path that brought you to this moment. After we've taken just a short moment to sit with and acknowledge the breath and the quality of our breath at this moment, we now start the renewal process. We start this process by slowly deepening the inhales and the exhales as they come through the cycle of breath. Here, as you get ready to take in your next inhale, I encourage you to set a goal. Allow your goal to be that each inhale that you breathe in brings in slightly more air than the one that came before it. And when you get to the exhale, allow your only goal to be that exhale releases slightly more air than the one that came before Ever so slowly, your breath begins to feel slightly more fulfilling, as well as slightly more connecting. If at any time your focus travels away from your breath, notice what comes up and gently bring yourself back to the inhale and the exhale, deepening the inhale with each breath, expanding the exhale with each breath out. Each round of breath that you take, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. Remember, it's one of those things that happen within our body without us even paying attention to it. Each inhale and exhale connects you not only to yourself and to your body, to your higher self, it also connects you to the universe and the ethers around you. But it's also a process of renewal. Each time a new breath and inhale is initiated, there is a birthing moment. There is something started or initiated. And as that breath swells and the inhale grows within your being, lungs expanding, diaphragm moving lower, making room for those big, nice, full lungs. Growing and growing until the breath cannot grow any longer. And then just as quickly as this breath that was birthed at the beginning of the inhale has come to its fullness, we shift and we start to let go. We start to release the breath from within our being. We don't hold onto this breath and keep it within our lungs as long as we can. Just as naturally as that inhale came within your being, it starts to slowly fall away, letting go and releasing the breath. There is a sort of decay that happens within the release of the breath, allowing us to let go of not only the air within our lungs, but stress, worry, blockages, things that are holding us back. This decaying process brings us to a symbolic type of death that prepares us for the rebirth. Letting go of the breath, releasing until we are completely empty within our lungs and within our body. And then, just as naturally as this process has went through, it begins again with the birth of an inhale. And that process of letting go through the exhale into the moment of emptiness brings us into a regeneration and a renewal. Through the inhale, start to bring in your next breath in, breathing in, filling your lungs. Breath is growing, growing, growing as the air comes in. And just as quickly as the inhale began, it turns away and starts to release. Continue this process of breathing in and out, connecting to the renewal that happens within your being with each cycle of breath. Notice how the inhale invigorates you, fills you up, gives you energy and confidence. Notice how the exhale allows you to release, let go. It allows you to surrender. It allows you to turn away from the inhale. There are many moments of renewal this week. There are many moments of small shifts that can lead to the renewals at hand. As Mercury moves closer to retrograde motion Venus, Mercury offers a helping hand, tool, a different perspective, the ability to lay out the plans for process improvement. Allowing us to move forward with ability. As the Sun comes into a conjunction with Saturn, just before moving into alignment for the Virgo lunar eclipse, the Sun goes through its own death and rebirth process. Our purpose, our soul, our motivation, that which is eternal within us. And at the same time, the structures and the foundations and the frameworks within our lives goes through a reset. That is a moment that can be big for many, many people. A reset of frameworks and foundations, while there's a reset of our motivations and that which fills us up, that which lights us up. Moving us into alignment for our first lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo. The first eclipse within this series in the sign of Virgo. We had a lunar eclipse in Pisces back in Virgo season. Eclipses across the signs that hand over change, that shift from season to season. The areas where we find Pisces and Virgo within our lives is an area where there are shifts and changes within our lives. There is a handover from one way of being to another way of being. And then just shortly after, coming into a conjunction with Venus, who is in retrograde motion, Mercury joins Venus and begins to move retrograde as well. Both moving closer to the Sun, starting the initiation of their own resetting and their own renewal and rebirth. The journey is underway in many, many ways. The process of Mercury going retrograde, the process of Venus moving through retrograde, the process of the eclipses, I want you to consider where the areas of renewal are within your own lives. Without worrying about house placements and your birth chart, just think about the activities within your life. Just think about the processes where things are shifting, where things are changing, where you can see on the horizon that there is going to be a renewal and a rebirth, even if you are just now stepping into the darkness. This week may require patience. It may require bravery. It may require courage. But it also requires you to remember that there is a process at hand. And how amazing is it to be a part of that process? Small shifts can bring renewal. I can guarantee that many of us are going to see different parts of our lives very differently once the process is over. Once this phase of the process, or whatever this position we are in right now, this transition, so now I would like to end this meditation with a visual. I want you to picture yourself moving through life as you are now. Again, just like in the beginning with our breath acknowledgement, no judging, no changing, just noticing how things are flowing now, how the events of your lives are moving, whatever aspect comes to your mind. It's probably the focus, the first thing that comes to your mind. And now, whatever part of your life you are seeing, I want you to picture where you want that to be in a year from now. And visualize how that looks to you. There's no right or wrong area of life here. It's very individual here, very personal here. Now take it a step further and picture 2 years out. Where would you like to be 2 years from now? Progress, momentum, shifting, changing, whatever it is for you. And then one more time, picture 3 years out. What has shifted and changed here? While picturing that 3 years out, I bring my hands together, palms touching. Hands in prayer come to heart. And I bow my head to the picture you are currently envisioning. The progress, the change, the shift, the momentum, the attention and the focus. Small shifts can bring renewal. Small shifts can bring renewal. I hope that this week you find small ways, maybe big ways, to participate and pay honor and homage to the renewal that is happening within you and within everybody else around you. Thank you, 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 thank you for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. I cannot say that enough because I really, really do. I love and enjoy this meditation so much, and I get so much from it. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for being a part of my process and my renewal that happens here. So I hope everybody enjoyed the meditation. I hope you got something really, really good out of it. If you have not looked at the weekly astrological outlook video, there is way more detail in there than there is here. These two are meant to complement each other, so you have the intention, you have the video, and you have the meditation, and hopefully this helps set you up for the week, astrologically, meditatively, and contemplatively as well. So I hope that if there is anybody that feels like the Page of Wands is in reverse position, that either you find contentment in that patience, in that waiting, or you find a way to shift it upright and find whatever is lacking. And I hope that everybody finds a way to remember to trust in the higher forces this week. Whether or not you feel like you're really, really good at doing that, see if you can find some other little way to just encourage that or trust within something. So where you just kind of like in true Piscean fashion, you just kind of let yourself go into the energy, within reason, of course, and something safe and productive and whatnot. But find a way that you can just trust the higher forces and allow yourself to just fully be enveloped within whatever the energy and the forces are that are around you. So thank you, everybody. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being included within this. I appreciate you putting your time here, too. So yeah, thank you, and I will see you all next week. Again, if you have not looked at the weekly video, check that out. Next Saturday, you can find the new intention as well as the next weekly video for next week, and I will see you here next Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and if you are someplace where you can see the Virgo lunar eclipse, I hope that it is clear, and I hope that you are able to feel that energy, whether you are able to visually see it or not, whether you take the time to get yourself up in the middle of the night or not. So everybody have a great week, and I will see you all next week. Bye, everybody.